Greetings, citizens of YouTube. It is I, the famous YouTube influencing sensation. Um, that's from Reddit. If I look sweaty, it's because I am. I've just come back from a run. Aren't I virtuous? And if I sound dry, it's because I am out of coffee. But that is just how committed I am to bringing you the news. And the news is all about me. I'm going to blow my horn for a little bit, and then I'm going to explain why blowing your own horn is necessary these days, or at least highly advisable for authors of all stripes. So the news is that the book that wouldn't burn is selling very well. Thank you very much for all of your support. That makes a huge difference, as does you talking about it in places where people go and uh, throwing stars at it on Goodreads and Amazon. All of these things really help a lot to make the buzz. I mean, if you could just carry your copy around all the time in both hands in front of you and wait for people to ask you what you're doing, that would also be very helpful. Did have one tiny bit of news, which was the sort of super pretty locked library edition. Voyager have 6 of these spare, and I think they're doing a giveaway for them soon. So it may be on Instagram, but if you keep your eye on Voyager channels, you could snag one of those for free simply by, I don't know, saying you want it. So there's 2 main bits of news on the sales front. One is that the book that wouldn't burn becomes my 3rd book to appear on the Sunday Times bestseller list, which isn't the New York Times bestseller list, but the Sunday Times is older. And the 2 previous ones were Emperor of Thorns that appeared at number 19 and Holy Sister that appeared at number 20. But those were both the last books in a trilogy, so they had a whole weight of expectation. People who were enthused about these series grabbing the last one on the day it came out. So this is my first book. That is the first book of a trilogy to appear on the list, and it's in at number 15. And given that a lot of the books were actually sold in the week previous to this one because of bookshops putting on the shelves early, that's a really good sign. And in America, the publisher Ace has had to reprint the hardbacks. So they ran out of first printings and now did second printings, and now they're on their third printings, which again is very good. I don't think I've ever had a hardback reprinted. Reprints are essentially a indicator of a disagreement between how many books they predicted they were going to sell and how many orders they actually had. So, if you're Stephen King and they do a million copies of in the first printing, then you may not get reprinted, but you may sell 900,000 of them and be doing really well. And if you're a much smaller fish, you might have several hundred printed and then have a second printing after a few hundred because those sold out. So mine is not indicating that I'm stratospheric, but it's heartening that demand has exceeded expectations. What else? On the SPFBO front, the SPFO opened its doors for the 9th time 2 days ago, and I've got a chart, I won't look it up, but of the length of time that it took to fill over the years. So in the first year, we kept the doors open for 4 days and then called it a day. And we had 276 books, which is past the 250 threshold, where I said, if we don't get this many, we won't bother doing it. And in the second one, it took like 3 days. And ever since then, it's been coming down and down and down. So last year, it was just under 9 hours. And this year, it was 41 minutes, which is quite scary because it can make it a bit of a lottery. I'm thinking about ways to ameliorate the situation, but it's difficult. Partly because, well, I don't like the idea of somebody having in a different time zone having to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and sort of hammer the refresh button in case they miss it. But on the other hand, all of the excitement that a rapid take up generates does draw eyes to the competition and generate enthusiasm and excitement, which in turn serves all of the people who are able to enter the contest. So I will think about that one. We're now running the cover contest, and the blogs are putting forward their three choices for the finalists in the cover contest, which is purely about the artists and designers. And quite a few of them have sent their three in already, but I think more than half of them still have yet to do it, which isn't a problem because we've only just got the books. And there's this website that Zach Argyle, who you might see in the book that wouldn't burn, as a character called Zach Argyle, is has a very brief appearance. You'll blink and you'll miss it. Has done this wonderful job of showing all of the covers of the books that entered the contest, so you can make your own judgment about whether the blogs picked the right three. And when we've got a full table of 30 finalists here, then the bloggers themselves will vote on their favourite, but I'll also do a public vote so we can see what the Vox Populi is. Anyway, I was going to talk about the business of blowing one's own horn. I mean, obviously, these days, a lot of the selling of books is done by the authors, by their social media presence. And a lot of publishers these days will ask, and agents, if you're applying to them, will ask questions about your social media platform, i.e. they want to know if they print your book, how many people are you going to be able to bring to the table to want to buy it? Which is tough because being a great writer doesn't necessarily overlap with being a great self-publicist, with attracting an audience on various social media platforms, or indeed having any interest in doing so. You know, why should you spend many hours doing social media if it doesn't interest you? It always has interested me because, well, partly just because there's interesting stuff going on there, but also being a carer for a very disabled child for the last 19 years means that my opportunity to go out places is severely limited. And so it forms a sort of proxy social life as well. So I don't begrudge it. But it can be a very toxic environment, depending on what social media you frequent. But Twitter is famously vicious. You know, those Russian propagandists slagging off Ukraine learn a few tricks from what randos on Twitter say about authors and books. But undoubtedly, it's a great way to alert people who are interested in the fact that you have a book out there. And I do things like I do a giveaway tweet, and if you retweet it, then you're in for a chance for this signed book, and that sort of thing getting retweeted 1,000 times. It puts the name and cover of the book in front of loads of eyeballs that otherwise wouldn't have reached. So there is an undoubted value in being on social media, and quite how loud you toot your horn is a matter for the individual. There is obviously a threshold that you can pass where it becomes, first of all, gauche and then annoying and then obnoxious. And you'll end up at a point where you start to turn potential readers away from you rather than draw them in. The difficulty is that unless you sort of border on the obnoxious level, you probably won't be heard above the noise threshold of all the other voices on these platforms. And also, everybody draws their own line for those judgments in a different place. So some people will take, you know, any passing mention of the fact you have a book as being terribly invasive and pushy, whereas other people won't notice unless you basically have a facial tattoo of your book list. So pitching it is a very difficult thing, and it depends on your personality, and also if you have the ability to maintain maybe a more outgoing personality on social media than you would in the real world. Like I would essentially never go up and talk to someone in the real world without invitation, whereas online I'm quite happy to tweet in caps buy my book with a slightly tongue-in-cheek edge to it, but really buy my book. I know that a number of authors have withdrawn from social media because of the mental health pressures that it puts on you. And it's not just people being mean, it's just being out there and seeing people say, because if you want to retweet the good things people say about your book, you basically have to search on your book name, and then you'll see the mean things people say, and that can be a very corrosive effect. For example, oh, Josiah Bancroft, brilliant author, has essentially withdrawn from all social media. I think he has a Patreon, but apart from that, um, you can't find him on social media. And I think Alec Hudson, who was the finalist in the SPFO 2 times, has a very much reduced social media presence. And these are absolutely things you should do if the process is getting you down. But it's better to have done them after you attracted an audience, because if you did it before you attracted an audience, then aside some sort of stroke of lightning, some sort of Uber TikToker finding your book at random and sort of deciding that to make it their life's job to sell them for you, then you're going to have a very hard time selling any books at all. Though you could still join the SPFO, for example, which doesn't require any social media presence. So I'm always um, promoting myself and ironically praising my own skills and injecting myself into places where I hope people will see, where I'll get an appreciative audience, people who might want to read the book. And as I say, it's a difficult judgment. So that's the reason why I have retweeted the information about the Times bestseller list, because it's an interesting piece of information to the people who read my books. They often will retweet it or like it, and that will spread its visibility. And then people who haven't read my books will go, oh, look, this book that I'd heard of, it's on the Sunday Times bestseller list. Maybe I'll buy that. So it's not entirely my ego saying, I want people to know how well this book is sold. It's, I want to utilize any piece of interesting information about the book in order to get it before people's eyeballs, because the thing that makes people buy books that they might be thinking of buying is repeatedly seeing it. Similarly, if some idiot decided to set fire to a copy of my book online, I'd probably share the image, not because I approved, but because it would draw in attention, and that would serve the purpose of selling the book. Everyone has their own limits. I'm going to leave you with that, and hopefully this piece of self-promotion and horn tooting has also reminded you that the book that wouldn't burn exists, and that it would be really helpful to me if you bought it, liked it, and told everyone about it. I'll now do the bit where I hunt for the way to turn off this recording. Catch you next.